prior to being a CEO and founder, right? I mean, you've been in this insights and branding space for a long time. I mean, you started at Coke, you've been at about.com, you did consulting for, everything from Chiat Day, the big guys to big brands like MTV. Talk to me, how did you even get into this insights work? How did you get into sort of this brand marketing space that eventually led you to being a founder and CEO?
Yeah. So I got my MBA at Emory University, and which is in Atlanta, which is where the Coca-Cola company is. And I really wanted to work for the Coca-Cola company. So Coke is known for really just hiring Ivy League grads. And but they had an evening at one of our MBA events where the CMO, whose name was Peter Seeley, spoke, and I went up to him afterward. I'll talk to anyone, and I was like, give me some advice. I would really like to get an internship at Coke. And he's like, wow. Politely, he was like, honestly, we really only hire graduates from Ivy League schools. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And my heart kind of sank, and I, went and broadened my search to a broader array of companies. A year later, he was fired, and I was hired. So never be discouraged. Never be discouraged. And don't ever take no for an answer.
Welcome to Lead with Your Brand, the podcast that explores exceptional career success stories, inspiring and insightful personal brand journeys that answer the question, are you coffee or are you Starbucks? Fascinating conversations with leaders about their career breakthroughs from tech, media, and more. You'll learn how they've turned up the volume on their brand to unlock success. Firsthand, uncensored, and real, as told by people who've been there. And plenty of inspiration and practical tools to help you lead with your brand every day as you drive towards your next career breakthrough. And now, here's your host, personal branding expert, inclusion advocate, keynote speaker, and author of the book, Lead with Your Brand. Build your super premium personal brand to achieve your next career breakthrough, Jayzen Patria. Learn more at leadwithyourbrand.com.
Well, hey everybody, Jayzen Patria here, and you are listening to and watching the Lead with Your Brand podcast, which is the show for folks just like you who are looking to turn up the volume, show your value, and lead with your brand to your next career breakthrough. Well, happy spring, everyone. We've got a brand new show for you, and I've got an exciting guest. It is Malinda Sanna, the CEO and founder of LookLook, which is a 7-figure proprietary consumer insights platform that she's built over the past 15 years. But before we get to Malinda, I want to talk a little bit about your brand. Now, if you've been listening to this show this year, you know that we are counting down to the release of my very new book, Lead with Your Brand, Build Your Super Premium Personal Brand to Achieve Your Next Career Breakthrough, which comes out later this year. But to get you super excited and to give you a first look, I've been going through my 5 steps to lead with your brand. Now, if you take a look at the screen here, we are going to focus on step number 4, which is all about keeping up your image. This is where you shape your signature style. Now, if you've missed any of the other steps, just go back into Apple Podcasts or the YouTube catalog or wherever you get your podcasts, and you can check out all of our episodes going back to the first week of January this year, because we are breaking down all of those steps, which brings you right here. Because once you've built your brand DNA, once you've identified what makes you uniquely you, now is your chance to focus on your image, and you've got to create and shape that signature style. So my question for you is, what is your formula? What is your recipe card, and what is your secret sauce? Now, I love Steven Spielberg. In fact, most of you know, I spent 25 years of my career working on the Universal lot, where Steven Spielberg made it his home and filmed iconic elements of so many of his films, like Jurassic Park. Now, when I think of a director like Steven Spielberg, I think he's got a formula. Now, what do I mean by that? He's got a signature style where you can tell a Steven Spielberg film or project just by watching it. Because whether or not it is a movie about sharks or dinosaurs or even Nazis, you can always see that through line that makes it a uniquely Steven Spielberg film. He has a little bit of a formula. And if you're a film lover, I know that you have seen those different elements, right? He always is big on having monsters. Now, sometimes those monsters are Jaws. Sometimes those monsters are T-Rexes. Sometimes they're Nazis. Even in a autobiographical film like Meet the Fabelmans, that monster showed up in the character of his very own father. And of course, if you've got monsters, you've got heroes. But Steven Spielberg always has that sense of heroes that are not the likely hero. Sometimes they're the resistant hero. Sometimes they're a hero that's just a child. Like if we look at Elliot in E.T., it's all about those heroes that we don't expect to come forward. You also see those themes like shadows and fog and light and dark. You see it in Jaws and the boathouse. In Jurassic Park, it's that flashlight that they're shining through as they're trying to escape the T-Rex that's escaped the paddock. It is all about how he uses those visuals of light and dark, even in a black and white film like Schindler's List. And of course, he has these themes of families that are torn apart, broken families, but also families that come together. Sometimes those are real families, like the family in E.T., and other times it's families that are put together by circumstance. I always think in Jurassic Park, it is the children running around and being saved and rescued by a new father figure, a scientist who chose never to have kids. So those are all of those unique elements that become the formula of a Steven Spielberg film. So I want you to start thinking about your signature style as your formula. What is that formula that you put into everything? Now, you know I grew up at NBC Universal and I'm a big fan of TV. Now, I'm going to ask you this question here. For over a decade, what was one of the #1 food shows on cable? Now, this was a popular food show. It was #1 for over a decade. It's in over its 20th cycle. Well, if you've been listening to the show, it's probably no surprise because ding, 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 it is Top Chef. Now, I bring this up because Top Chef is on what network? You've got it right. It is on Bravo. Now, what is wrong with Top Chef being on Bravo? Well, I think you got it right. Bravo is not the Food Network. It's not the cooking channel. It's not even a home and garden channel. So it seems really odd that for over 10 years, Bravo, an entertainment pop culture network, actually had the #1 food show. Well, let's kind of take a look at this, because if you look at maybe who their competition is, Bravo was able to say, we are going to do Food by Bravo. Now, if we go back in time, right, 20 plus years, the Food Network, which by the way should have had the #1 food show on cable all of those times, they were doing shows like Paula Deen's Home Cooking, right? Very kind of niche, very instructional, very Southern, right? Maybe not the same universal appeal, but Top Chef felt quintessentially Bravo. If you look out and you look at Fox TV network, right? The renegade fourth network that came out in the late 80s, they had the top food show that was on broadcast television in Hell's Kitchen. And when you look at that picture there of Gordon Ramsay, it feels like it perfectly sits on a network like Fox, the home of Married with Children, Cops, and the original Beverly Hills 90210, where teenagers have sex. In fact, if you look at this, A quintessential part of Fox TV shows is an angry British man yelling at you. Think about Simon Cowell on the original American Idol. Look at Gordon Ramsay staring at you right there. Sometimes it's even those animated characters on Fox's animated family TV shows. I will even tell you, about 10 years ago, Fox had a very queer LGBTQ plus musical comedy on its network. And that doesn't necessarily feel like it's so on brand for Fox. But you know what made it on brand for Fox? This angry British man that yells at you. Except in the TV show Glee, it was repackaged as a Midwestern woman that yelled at you in terms of Sue Sylvester, the coach, that was played by the iconic Jane Lynch. That snarky, evil, rough-edged character made Glee fit perfectly with those other shows on Fox. So my question for you is, if Bravo can do Food by Bravo, you should be able to do anything. You should be able to work at different companies, work on different projects, even move into different functions and expertise, as long as you can do Food by you. Now, how did Bravo do that? They were really big on having a defined brand filter. This was the old Bravo formula. Now, I want to bring out some things. If you look at the very top, it really goes back to your audience. We started out by talking about your career audience and who those personas and avatars are. Remember, at Bravo, they were looking to super serve the affluencer, the affluent influencer, and they broke them into two avatars. Remember, the Wills and Graces of the world and the PTA trendsetters. And their goal was that they wanted to be one of the most upscale 18 to 49 networks on cable television, and they wanted to move up in their channel ranking. Well, they were able to basically say, hey, look, we've got to have relatable characters, dramatic storylines, and attractive 20 to 30-something subjects. That was the table stakes. They were just not going to put a TV show on the air that didn't have those things. But once you went past them, these were all of those design and production elements that went into making it a quintessential show. So when they said, hey, we want to do a food show, they looked at this and said, bing, our first thing on here is we have to have LGBTQ plus characters represented. So I was even working with the Bravo team on one of their cycles where they had actually shut down the production after the first or second episode because they didn't feel that they really had a compelling LGBTQ plus character that the audience would be rooting for. They went back to recast because they knew that was important to the Wills and Graces and the PTA trendsetters. They said it was simultaneously smart and fun, upscale and cosmopolitan locales, right? Top Chef was in New York and Los Angeles and went around the world to places like Mexico City. And then they said aspirational environments, unique and innovative, high-end sophisticated production. So when they put food through that formula, through that recipe, it came out as Top Chef, looking quintessentially like a Bravo show. Now, guess what? They put other things through that. In fact, they put soap opera and telenovela through that. And guess what they came out with? They came out with the Real Housewives franchise, which is clearly the most successful franchise in cable television history. You're still watching it cycles and cycles later. But if you think about it, it's really based on the Spanish language telenovela concept of big hair, big cars, and big emotions. But suddenly when you push it through this lens, it comes out as the Real Housewives of, you name, the upscale cosmopolitan locale, whether it's Beverly Hills, the Potomac, or Orange County. Now, I want you to really think about your signature filter here. So when you think about your brand filter, these are really going to be your packaging rules. Now, take a look at the first two of these. This is all about how you dress and how you maintain your workspace. You defined your brand DNA in our previous steps. Once you have that defined, you've got to show up that way. Now, I'm not asking you to be a fashionista. I'm not asking you to be an interior designer. But what I'm going to challenge you to do is think about how what you wear, how you style yourself, and the environment that you put yourself in, whether you go to a cubicle, an office, or you're in a remote world showing up on Zoom or Teams, that look and feel should amplify your supersized words and bring that feeling to life. So let me give you an example. I say that I'm Hollywood and I'm a showman. And I say that I'm a jet setter. So I've got a little bit of spiky hair and a wild part. I wear jet set nerd glasses. Look behind me. I'm sitting in a mid-century modern setting that has kind of iconic pieces from Hollywood and mid-century elements that are all part of my jet set aesthetic. I am bringing you a look and feel that reflects and amplifies what I want to be known for uniquely as a brand. Now, at minimum, be neutral, but what I really want you to watch for is creating cognitive dissonance. You cannot say, wow, I am super organized. I'm the most analytical and insightful person. But when you show up on Zoom or you show up on Microsoft Teams, we can see that you've got a bed that's all unmade behind you. We can see dirty laundry strewn behind you. We can see you wearing your yoga clothes and you're sweating because you just came in from a yoga class. Because what we know is that people trust what they see more than what you tell them. So you can keep telling them, I'm super organized. I've got your data taken care of. But if they look at those visuals, they trust their eyes and they trust that you are sloppy and disorganized regardless of what you say. So do a little bit of calibration and check and make sure that the visuals and that packaging is showing up and amplifying your brand DNA. Now, what I think is most important is looking at how you present ideas and how you produce signature projects. So when I was working with the Bravo team, they acquired a network called Oxygen. And Oxygen at the time was all about being rebranded to super serve the Generation O girls. It was all about super serving young urban women who were living life on their own terms, their first time living on their own, first big job, first person to move away from their family, maybe first person to go to school in their family. Those were the Generation O girls that they were going after. Now, I know if you turn Oxygen on now, whether you're streaming it or watching it on cable, it's all crime all the time, but this was a few iterations ago. Now, I want you to think like how Oxygen thought about defining their brand at the time. So Oxygen basically said, hey, we need to find this new audience. We've got to super serve these Generation O women. How are we going to do that? So you know what they said? They said, what are the most successful shows on our network right now? And how do we figure out what the secret sauce is between them that we can create a brand filter that's going to enable us to create new shows? So if you take a look here at the time, the 3 successful shows on Oxygen were The Bad Girls Club, where a whole bunch of young women battled it out living in a mansion to be the last person standing. Snapped, which is still a staple of Oxygen today, right? Which was about women who snapped and became serial killers or murderers or crime ring folks, something like pretty out of the ordinary. And Tori and Dean, Home Sweet Hollywood, right? My favorite, Tori Spelling, who I grew up with on 90210, really Tori coming into her own as a young mother and a newlywed. They basically said, how do we take what is common amongst these shows and create it into our own brand filter or formula? And on this side here, they were able to do the exact same thing. Now, the interesting thing is that for the most part, the table stakes between Oxygen and Bravo were almost the same. relatable characters, dramatic storylines. Just in Oxygen, it got a little bit younger, but look at how it changed. It was about strong central figures. It was about a mix of fun and spectacle. It was about provocative situations, sexy, stimulating environments, and a shiny or blingy production. That enabled them to take a whole bunch of other genres of shows and make them uniquely Oxygen. So I am asking you to start thinking about your signature projects. I want you to think about what makes you tick and what are the projects you're most proud of. So where Oxygen went back and said, what are our 3 hit shows that are being successful with our audience? I want you to think back and say, well, what are your hit shows? What are those signature projects that over the past couple of years you are most proud of? And how can you find the secret sauce there? Once you think about 2, 3, maybe even 4 projects, I want you to ask yourself these questions. What made these projects uniquely you? If you had not been part of these projects, how would they have been executed differently? Now, let's be clear. In the workplace, if we got hit by a bus, someone else would get assigned that project tomorrow. None of us are that indispensable. But what I want you to think about is if you suddenly left that project, wouldn't happen? Or how would it be executed differently? Or what are the unique things that you add on to the project that are above and beyond just what is expected? Now, take a look at your screen here. I want you to figure out what's that secret sauce that's consistent amongst these projects, and how might you define it in terms of implementable actions and behaviors. What we want to get to are those repeatable actions that you can do on every project moving forward. This is your opportunity to create your own recipe card, your own formula, and your filter for doing things. Now, I look back at all of these different projects that I've done throughout my career, going all the way back to when I worked at Universal Studios Hollywood Theme Park as part of Universal Destinations and Experiences, to working at NBC Universal Corporate, to even going way back to projects that I did as an event planner at the University of Southern California as a student programmer there. And when I think through that, I see different trends and a secret sauce. Now, I want to mash that up and go to my supersized words. I told you I am a storyteller. I told you that I'm a first mover, that I'm Hollywood and a showman. So I've got to come back and say, what is the secret sauce that enables people to see me as a showman? Well, I know that then I can tactically make a formula for myself that any initiative that I'm going to do, I'm going to make it a show. I'm going to produce a podcast like you're watching a show. If you show up with me virtually on Zoom, I'm going to use multiple cameras. I'm going to use technology like going up to a weather wall and touching the wall like what you watch on a streaming TV show or the news. If I show up in person, I am going to jump out into the audience. I'm going to break that fourth wall. I'm going to bring people up on stage. I'm going to go out and have conversations with people that are unscripted because I'm going to bring the show. Those are all tactical things that I can do on every project to ensure that it is on brand for Jayzen. So whatever training I'm asked to do, whatever keynote I'm asked to present, even if I'm in a small group, I'm going to bring the show, and I've got a list of tactical things that I can bring and implement on any project. Let's maybe take another one. I like to say that I'm a storyteller. That's my supersized word. Well, if I want to be known for that, on my brand filter, I have to go back and say, well, how have I brought story to life in the past on other projects? Well, you know what? I'm going to create a narrative arc so that everything I'm doing from a design standpoint has a story to it. I know that I need to tell stories, right? And I know that I need to tell 3 different types of stories to make them uniquely on brand for Jayzen. I am going to share stories from the business world and from big brands and help extrapolate how you can use that corporate storytelling to build your own career and personal brand. I am going to share stories of great business leaders that I have worked with, folks that I have known, observed, and learned from, and help you learn from them. And then I'm going to tell stories of my own experiences, things I've observed and things I've gone through in my own career journey that I can help and provide some advice on. Those become tactical things to do. Now, yours may be very different. I want to share with you, this is someone that worked with me in my career breakthrough program. Her name was Olivia, but she looked at these as some of her brand filters. She said, hey, one brand filter is building expertise, but then if you look below that, she put very tactical things below it. She's going to set the big picture with team members so they have context. She's going to assess team members' knowledge and ability at executing tasks before she assigns things. She is going to provide training to upskill and build expertise. Now, guess what? Whether she is working on a gigantic new project or she's running an ongoing team, she's going to make sure that she implements those things every single time because it makes it uniquely on brand for her. Now, let's take a look at another one here, like look at filter 4, feedback. She's saying, I'm going to proactively give clear language feedback to team members and help them find learning or a solution. And I'm always going to do a post-mortem feedback where I'm going to open up the conversation of what worked and what needed to change. Now, here's my challenge to you. I want you to come up with 4 to 8 different elements of your formula, of your filter that creates your signature style. Now, you want to make these broad enough that they can appeal and be applied to any project or assignment or job that you work on. This is going to be that recipe card that helps you show up on brand. Now, there you go. That is step 4 of the Lead with Your Brand system, how to keep up on your image and shape your signature style. Now, if you need a little bit more assistance here, make sure you go to leadwithyourbrand.com where you can download our 5 steps to lead with your brand workbook that can help you with some activities to help you focus on building your own brand filter. Well, I am super excited about today's show because I have an amazing guest. It is Malinda Sanna, the CEO and founder of LookLook. Now, LookLook is a 7-figure proprietary consumer insights platform that Malinda built over 15 years with a team of 16. Now, they are specializing in luxury market research through what Malinda calls cultivated communities, where she has recruited participants with a one-on-one relationship where they rely on, instead of relying on third-party panels. Now, she created what she calls the Beautyverse and the Luxuryverse, which I'm going to explore with her, and she leads a global team of executives in New York, Paris, Dubai, Sao Paulo, Beijing, and Shanghai. She's conducted over 900 studies with 30,000 plus research participants, and she has served amazing clients like Shiseido, BMW, LVMH, Google, and Nestle. We'll be back in just a few moments with Malinda Sanna, the CEO and founder of LookLook.
Is your workforce ready to take ownership of their career, amplify their impact, and show up as standout talent every day? Lead with Your Brand is the essential suite of programs for companies serious about retaining top talent and building a culture of performance-driven growth. Based on a real brand marketer's toolkit, this 5-step system gives leaders and professionals the ability to build personal brands that stand out, speak up, and help them drive towards their next career breakthrough. Ultimately declaring, "In my career, I'm not a commodity worker like coffee. I'm a super premium brand like Starbucks." Visit leadwithyourbrand.com for more information.
And we are back. I have a fabulous guest with us here today. It is Malinda Sanna, who is the CEO and the founder of LookLook. Malinda, what is going on?
Oh, just loving the arrival of spring here in New York. We've been through a brutal winter. And yeah, so just excited. We've got a lot of good projects happening, and it's an interesting time to be alive.
You can say that again. Now, Melinda, I have to ask you, we always talk about in terms of people's personal and professional brand, like what's your elevator pitch? So give us the elevator pitch. Who are you? And tell us a little bit about LookLook.
Yeah, so we're a market research company or an insights company. We are small by design. We work with mostly luxury companies that enjoy a very selective approach to recruiting people to be in research studies. And what that means is we don't even use the word research when we're talking to people, mostly women, about being participants in our studies. And we're unusual in the sense that we do our own recruitment because no one else really does a good job. And it's the hardest part of market research. So a lot of that is typically outsourced by research companies, especially when it comes to luxury brands, because it's difficult to find highly qualified people. So that's really our secret sauce. And we cater to a lot of the European luxury houses. And we do non-luxury work as well, but that's kind of our niche is finding very highly qualified purchasers of luxury brands. And as I mentioned, our specialty is women, although we do work with men too, and watches and automotive and that kind of thing, but a lot of fashion and beauty.
Yeah, and I know you work with some amazing clients like BMW, LVMH, Google, Nestle, Shiseido, right? Like some really high-end brands that everyone knows about. And then talk to me about this, you go out to folks in what you call those cultivated communities. So talk to me, what the heck is a beauty verse or a luxury verse?
So these are we've worked for Chanel, we've worked for various, parts of LVMH and a lot of beauty companies. And so sort of through the course of working with this type of client over, 7 or 8 years now, we've collected participants that are part of our network, and they love doing studies with us. I mean, we pay them quite well. We hang on their every words. We make it fun. I don't believe research should be rigid and boring, and I don't believe in, ticking a box surveys. We like to really make it feel like a content exercise for everyone involved. And so after someone does a study, whether it's, makeup or skincare or jewelry, whatever, they often will want to come back and do more studies. And so we have this database now of over 20,000 people that are highly motivated to respond to us because we're very white glove in the way we reach out to them. It's never, kind of a mass email exercise. It's very personalized. So a few years ago, we decided to shape and mold some groups of these types of participants. We mark people within our database as luxury qualified. We mark them as superstars. So we took the superstar luxury qualified people and put them into what we call the luxury verse. And so we tap into that now mostly for our own studies that we use to distribute ideas and content and little mini magazines. But it's also available to our clients if they want a quick read on something, because these women know to expect, you may get a link to a survey we need you to answer in the next 24 hours. So we can get a quick read, on whatever the burning questions are that our clients have. So that's our luxury verse. We have that. It's 100 women in America, and then we have 100 women in China, in tier 1 cities like Chengdu and Shanghai and Beijing. And those are sort of cream of the cream women that are spending at least $10,000 a year on luxury ready to wear from very specific houses. And then the Beautyverse is a bigger community. So those are luxury beauty buyers. So they're not necessarily spending at the same level as ready to wear, but they're buying luxury brands of makeup and skincare and fragrance. And so we have 1,000 of those. And
Wow.
and that includes men. So we have a little subsegment called the Machoverse for the men, because all of our beauty clients are, increasingly very interested in what men have to say and what they're buying. It's a very fast growing segment of the beauty industry. So now we have our Machoverse within our Beautyverse.
So I love these names, right? The luxury verse, the beauty verse, the macho verse, right? Because I love that you kind of articulate that there's demographics with that, right? But what it really sounds like is you're using one of those core branding tenets is like, what's the persona? What's the avatar in terms of like, what's my lifestyle? What's my mindset? And you're super serving them to bring back to your clients all of those great insights.
Yeah. Exactly. So they're sort of engaged groups of people. It's a little bit of a misnomer to call them communities at this point, because we're having one-on-one conversations with them. But it is our vision to turn them into communities, because now we also have a way of facilitating group chats. So we have done a little bit of that, and that's pretty exciting because they do like interacting with each other directly without even any prompting from us, because it's kind of like they've found their people in an anonymous context, which allows them to, be very, very honest and blunt and objective with each other, and get kind of an honest take from other people that share their tastes and preferences.
Well, that is awesome. And it sounds like there's so many exciting things going on, and you're managing a global business with serving global brands, which is amazing. And Malinda, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show is prior to being a CEO and founder, right? I mean, you've been in this insights and branding space for a long time. I mean, you started at Coke, you've been at about.com, you did consulting for, everything from Shy at Day, the big guys to big brands like MTV. Talk to me, how did you even get into this insights work? How did you get into sort of this brand marketing space that eventually led you to being a founder and CEO?
Yeah. So I got my MBA at Emory University, and which is in Atlanta, which is where the Coca-Cola company is. And I really wanted to work for the Coca-Cola company. So Coke is known for really just hiring Ivy League grads. And but they had an evening at one of our MBA events where the CMO, whose name was Peter Seeley, spoke. And I went up to him afterward, I'll talk to anyone. And I was like, give me some advice. I would really like to get an internship at Coke. And he's like, politely, he was like, honestly, we really only hire graduates from Ivy League schools. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And my heart kind of sank, and I, went and broadened my search to a broader array of companies. A year later, he was fired and I was hired. So never be discouraged. Never be discouraged. And don't ever take no for an answer, especially in the world we're living in now, where things can turn on a dime. And the only reason I kind of slipped in is because I had worked at the Harvard School of Public Health before my MBA program, and I was a grant writer for the International Conference on AIDS. And this was back in the 90s. This was the Bush administration, and I won't go into all the details, but the conference had to move to Amsterdam because there were groups like ACT UP that were very, very effective in instituting change around the disease at that time. And so the US wouldn't take AIDS off their list of dangerous and contagious diseases. So Harvard, God bless them, they said, okay, then we're not going to have the conference at Harvard. We're going to have it in Amsterdam because we align with their values. And so I was a grant writer, but I had the chance to work for this conference, travel back and forth to Amsterdam, took on a larger role. Like, that really it sort of lit my fire for international travel, international business. And it was that event management experience that got me the job at Coca-Cola because they were sponsoring the Olympics.
Wow. So, I mean, I love this. It's like you go over doing grant writing and advocating right in the health and the social space. And then you end up doing a huge event that's sponsored by a big name brand that you wanted to work for. So what a full circle moment. Talk to me. So like when you were doing that, what were the things that you did to get, from the event and sponsor people at Coke into the people that ultimately hired you?
Yeah. So just networking, when I got the internship and working on the Olympics, I just got to know as many people as I could in the area where I wanted to work, which happened to be advertising at the time. So I got placed there. And then, to be honest, I worked with a lot of really great ad agencies like Wieden & Kennedy and others. And so I'm in my 20s at this time, right? And I'm like, they're having more fun than I'm having. Coke is great, but those people in New York City, like they're really having a good time with their work. And so I decided to move to New York. I spent a few years working at some really fantastic ad agencies when advertising was a fun place to be. I'm not sure it is anymore. But at the time it was great. And then I went out on my own really at a pretty young age. So I have been working as a free agent since 2000 and worked as a freelancer for a while. And then I started developing alternative methodologies in the world of research because at advertising agencies, I had moderated a lot of focus groups, which I'm sure you're familiar with and your listeners are as well. But I always felt like there had to be a better way. The creative people that I would work with hated focus groups and, people would drive to a sterile strip mall, and sit in a room with strangers talking about whatever. And I was like, there has to be a better way. So I guess in the early 2010s, when everyone was developing apps, I was like, maybe there's room for an app where I talk to people one-on-one. So that's how the idea of LookLook came about. I mean, there were other methodologies that I had developed before then, and I got a really good break in 2010, I think, with another methodology called the Sensory Safari that was featured in the New York Times. So that was a huge break for me because, I had zero visibility and suddenly I was in the Times and then Starbucks came calling and, it just kind of rolled out from there. Then I got other big clients. So even though we are a boutique firm, we really punch above our weight in terms of the types of clients that are drawn to us.
Yeah. And it sounds like for you, it was all about like solving that problem that people hate going to focus groups, right?
Right. And being able to turn the insights into, translating them into something usable. Because I'd been on the client side. And I think, when you work on the client side and you feel the pain of a P&L and you know that at the end of the deal, it's about, at the end of the day, it's about selling product and having operational constraints. A lot of people that have only worked on the service side don't necessarily have empathy for those realities. So I think, it's not enough to deliver a beautiful PowerPoint or keynote presentation. You have to be able to also say, and this is what you can do with these findings that'll make a difference in your business.
Absolutely. And I'm so interested in sort of these like career pivots, right? It's like you were working on the brand side, you moved to the agency side, you went out to the freelance side, you became an entrepreneur.
Right.
And how has that journey, I mean, you really talked about like you've sat on the brand side and been like, okay, we spent a fortune on this and now what? We just have a pretty deck.
Right.
How did those experiences like inform the organization that you have now as LookLook? That's one question. My second question is like, what gave you the confidence to just like flip from one side to the other and then go and launch your own shingle or go out and freelance?
Yeah. Well, Let me start with the second part of your question.
Yeah.
What gave me that confidence was I was being hired by other consulting firms, and they would take my methodologies and pass them off as their own. So I was like, that doesn't work for me. So I'm going to trademark this and start my own company. I think if that hadn't happened, I don't know that I would have incorporated.
Yeah.
Quite honestly, I
But
probably
it kind
would
of gave you the validation. Obviously, this is good stuff. If like
exactly.
one of the big folks are gonna
Right.
use it as their own, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And then so talk to me about like the confidence at a pretty young age to even just go out on
Mhm.
the freelance,
Yeah.
market when you're kind of walking away from, kind of the safety and security of
Right.
a big firm kind of in the heyday of the big
Yeah.
firms.
Yeah. Consulting is a great way to start a business because there's very little overhead. I mean, later we developed software, and we are bootstrapped, so that that was a lot more challenging. But consulting is a really good way to start a business if you are hesitant because you don't need to have any staff to begin with if you're willing to do a lot of your own support work and research. And now with the AI tools that are available, you really don't need that many staff as a consultant. So that gave me a lot of confidence. And then also
Yeah.
just, I had, by that point I was in my 30s. I had built up my own personal network to be able to say, hey, Mr. FAO Schwartz or, um, Nabisco or whoever, I'm out on my own now, and available for freelance work. And I think it was about at that time that people looking for more creative alternatives to the same old, they were kind of getting wise to the concept that individuals are often able to pull that off better than big
Mm.
agencies. So I was able to kind of ride that wave as well.
Yeah. And talk to me, what was the most challenging part about founding LookLook? Or when you look back over the years, what do you wish you did differently or knew back then when you were first launching your agency?
Yeah, yeah. So the hardest part by far was developing the technology for the app. I mean, that is not for the faint of heart. I think even now with vibe coding, it's not that easy. So gosh, I mean, we probably churned through 4 different software development agencies before we found the right team. So
Mm.
that was very challenging. I think there probably could have been better due diligence on my part in terms of finding, because the sort of switching costs and transition from one piece of software or app, development to the next is really time consuming. But once we found our partner, we're very, very loyal to them now. And during COVID, we went from being a mobile app and having to sort of apply to Google, iTunes and Google Play Store for approvals. Now we're a piece of, we're a website optimized for mobile. So most people or research participants use their phone to talk to us, but now they can also use an iPad or a tablet or a laptop or a desktop. So it gives them much more flexibility. And that's what it's all about, because people are busy. You know that, it's like, especially these hard to find participants that we're charged with. I mean, they are beyond busy. So we give them time. Everything that we do is asynchronous so that they have the flexibility to answer a little bit here, answer a little bit there. And then, we tell them on a certain day we might come back with follow-up questions so they know what to expect. And we treat their time, with respect. And I think that's how we've been able to keep people loyal to us and coming back to do more studies with us.
Absolutely. So speaking of people coming back, right? I want to talk a little bit about your brand and the brand of LookLook, right? Because it sounds like that's a big why people in your cultivated communities choose to be there. And it's also why these luxury brands, trust that you're going to connect them with these insights. So Malinda, give me 3 words that describe brand Malinda Sanna. And then I want 3 words that describe brand LookLook.
Ooh, okay.
In the case that they're different or the same.
Yeah, great question. So on the first one, I went to my team actually because I'm a researcher. I'm like, guys, how would you describe my leadership style? And first I got like deafening silence. And then I was like, whoa, okay. Like, I really need your help here. And then it started spilling out. And the first word they used to describe my leadership style is curious and human, which I thought was really interesting. And I think that's kind of testament to the AI obsessed world that we're living in. But I do try to be very transparent with my people. So if I'm stressed or feeling overwhelmed, I'm happy to share that with them. I mean, we've been through, obviously with COVID and other world crises, we're living through stressful times. And I just think it's important to show your human side as a leader with your people. So I've like cried in front of them. I've been, and also we're all remote. So I think it really does require a lot of transparency and authenticity, to connect. And we're a very tight team because of that. So I would say curious, human, and I think I'm also very protective. That's my own description of myself, because I feel protective of my team and anyone who's associated, because we have full-time employees and then we have a large satellite of people in other parts of the world that help us do what we do, and I feel protective of all of them. We have someone in Dubai right now who I'm very concerned about, and people in Shanghai that I talk with regularly, and I'm protective of them, and I'm protective of our client relationships. I want to always make sure that we are over-delivering in a service capacity. But I think what really makes us different and special is that I feel protective of our research participants. So I don't, I want to make sure the studies aren't too long and exhausting, and that we're paying people what they're worth for the time that we're demanding. There's so many surveys that are just forced out in a factory-like manner that say, oh, you'll have a chance to win a $100 gift card at Amazon. No, we're going to pay everybody in every study that we do, and we adjust the payment towards the time commitment. But we also are responsive to them. So they're never going to get a recorded message or not be able to reach us. Like, they can text us. That's how white glove it is. So I feel protective. I guess I am a mother, so there's a little bit of that lioness in me that feels protective of my team, of my participants, of the kind of sphere that we've created.
Yeah, I love that. So curious, human, protective. Now, Malinda, tell me, has that sort of been always the hallmarks of your brand, or has it evolved over time?
I think it's always been there. I mean, I was solo and then just had one assistant for many years before I built out the team. But I did always want to be a good boss. It's important to me to feel like I'm a good force in the world. I think the things that we tend to chase sometimes in America are money and big houses and career success. I think what gives me joy is to help other people, So I want to make sure that I'm helping my employees, that I'm helping our clients, and bringing a little joy to the people that are in our studies, even if we're just like, giving them compliments on a handbag they purchased, and it's genuine.
Exactly.
We are often super impressed with these people that we're talking to, but just being a good force in the world, I think is part of my own personal brand, and I hope that it's part of the LookLook brand. I think that it is, and I think that you had asked earlier, what's the delta between your personal brand and LookLook? I think that sense of rarity, which is very much a part of the luxury world,
Yeah.
is really defines us because, we're not out there advertising. We've never done advertising. All of our business is inbound and word of mouth. And I think, the level of recruitment quality or finding of luxury participants is very unique. I don't know that anyone else has it. And then the way we're able to kind of deliver our findings in a way that are actionable and bring some, empathy, I think, to what our clients are going through.
Yeah.
I always say to people on my team, make sure, we're talking to people and writing our reports in a way that's interesting. We may be the most fun part of our client's day, for all we know. And the last thing we want to hear is, oh, this confirms what we already knew. That's death to me. Like, that's failure to me. I want to make sure that we're sharing something that makes them think, that challenges conventional wisdom.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It sounds like, you have that rarity piece there, but it's also about, fun and joy and challenging, right? It's like you want people to have the fun and be challenged with what the insights are.
Yeah.
And then Malinda, I've heard you use the term white glove, right? That feels like that's kind of a core element of the LookLook brand as well, whether you're talking about your participants or the clients that you're working with.
Right. Yeah, it is important. And I think increasingly so, in a world that is automated and has robots and a lot of generative AI slop, right? So we're fascinated by AI, and we're in a perfect position to really leverage it in what we do and make what we do faster and more productive. But at the same time, I think it makes the rarity and the human element of what we do even more special. So, I hope that we're always able to be responsive on a human level to the people in our studies, to our clients, and to each other as team members.
Yeah. And now, Malinda, let me ask you, because you have worked with world-class brands, basically your entire career. You have an amazing roster of luxury brand clients right now. What are some things that you've learned from them about brand management, or even things that you've advised via insights about brand management that you think any of our listeners could take that sort of consumer-facing brand knowledge, but they could actually leverage that to enhance their own personal and professional brand?
Yeah, what an interesting question. I think brands are belief systems, and people never really talked about their personal brand until maybe a decade ago. I think everyone now takes a marketing course in school, no matter what you're studying. I think we all study marketing now. So it used to be kind of cringy to talk about your personal brand, but it's not anymore. I think people, especially people in their 20s, take that very seriously. And I think it's not just about how you look or, dressing a certain way. It's really about what you believe is important. And that's hard work to figure out what that is. What are you truly committed to on a personal level? And then once you've done that work, everything else should fall out of that. So your actions should reflect that. And from a corporate branding perspective, it's really important to know your competition, and to know what problem you're solving, to fall in love with the problem, not just the solution. And I have to
And I guess, that's really relevant to everyone, right? It's like, especially in today's disrupted world. You're talking about AI there, it's like, well, what problem are you solving that maybe AI can't solve, right? Or that you're solving with AI, right?
Yeah.
And like, who's your competition, whether that is someone sitting in the cubicle next to you or a chat bot or a bot that can do some of those things as well. So it's kind of interesting, like that parallel comes all the way through.
No, you're so right about that. You are so right about that nexus of human and artificial intelligence together. that's where the magic is already happening. And I think there will always be a human element in so much of what we do. I don't buy the fact that AI is replacing jobs. I think jobs may be going away for other reasons, and maybe a little bit in the coding world with AI, but it's making all of our team members more productive and able to concentrate on more elevated questions. So
Yeah.
it's that
And
combination
how are you
of human
coaching
and
your
AI.
team to like not be fearful, but instead be an adopter, be someone that plays in it, innovates in it? How are
Yeah.
you helping your team sort of get over that hurdle of like the ick factor that I know a lot of people have?
Yeah, and you're right about that. It is shocking how unpopular AI is in our country. It's something like, I think it's less popular than the war in Iran. I read something recently, but anyway, my approach has been to say let's play with it. Let's subscribe to a lot of them. Let's because they're all leapfrogging each other and they all have relative strengths. You know, we're sort of in love with
Yeah.
Claude right now, but we played around with ChatGPT and Gemini. So I think I think the answer is make it work for you. Figure out how it can take away the parts of whatever you're working on that you find tedious. You know, if you don't like to build bar charts, get AI to do it for you or tell you how to access a tool that will do it for you. You know,
Yeah.
often just asking the LLM what the best approach is a great place to start, you know, and you can create a very personalized solution. You know, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be an entrepreneur with these tools that are available. It's amazing what
Absolutely.
they're doing.
Now, Melinda, you know, a moment ago you talked about, you know, what great brands have is sort of this belief. And if you're really clear on that belief, then all of those other things can really flow to it, right? Kind of what's in scope, out of scope, what guides kind of your behaviors. So let me ask you, as a CEO and founder, what's like one of your core beliefs that sort of drives both how you show up, but also how you lead your firm?
You know, I come back to honesty. I think I think it's rare to find, and I think that it's precious when we do. And honesty is something that can be really performative from a lot of brands, you
Yeah.
know? So when you find it, it's valuable. And I think it requires a lot of a company. It requires them to speak their truth, to admit when they've made mistakes. You know, it's kind of the opposite of what a PR fixer would tell you to say. But, you know, I think that's what's required now.
Yeah.
People are looking for real voices that cut through the clutter.
Yeah. And it sounds like that sort of guided you into a niche where, you know, when you talk about being human and you talk about being protective, right? Those all kind of stem from that belief. But it also sounds like it's a little bit of a calling card as to why people want to work with you, whether it's on the participant side or on the actual client side.
Yeah, I think we're very good at listening. And I think that is also a quality that's hard to find today. People are very good at talking and blustering and not always great at listening. So it's really important for us to listen to our clients and listen to what they really need. And it's also very important with our research participants because some of the most interesting findings come unexpectedly in the kind of research that we do, which is a lot of small, you know, sample size and going really deep with people. A friend of mine called LookLook a virtual confessional because it's all one-on-one. And because of the anonymity and then the text-based way we interact, I mean, there's a lot of video and pictures too, but there are a lot of open-ended text responses and people open up to us. It's unbelievable. So I just started a Substack and I'm calling it the virtual confessional because I think I really like that way of thinking about
I
what
love that.
we are. So
Yeah,
I think
and
it
how
invites
differentiated
honesty.
that is from the old school focus group of like, I'm sitting with strangers and I see the mirror and I know someone's behind there, or I see the
How
camera and I know
dumb
someone's
is that?
watching me,
It's
right?
so awful. It's so cheesy. Everyone knows there's strangers behind the mirror, and
Yeah.
I hope that focus groups are going away, but I don't know that they are. I think a lot of people still use them. Unfortunately, there
Yeah.
is a better way.
Well, well, Malinda, I know we could talk all day long. I've got a couple of quick fire
Yeah.
questions for you to close us out. We've been talking all about the brands you serve and the
Yeah.
brand of LookLook and your brand. What is a personal favorite brand of yours as a consumer, right? Strip away
Mm,
being a CEO and founder, but what's a brand that you're obsessed with that you can't live without?
that I can't live without. Okay, I would say there's a my husband would laugh at me. There's a pajama company. I love everything associated with my bed. I love really high quality sheets. I like them ironed. I like high quality pajamas and pillows. There's a pajama company called Petite Plume that's not terribly well known, but it was founded by a woman. I think she used to be a CIA agent. And
Ooh.
their products are inspired. I mean, the quality is amazing. I will never buy another brand. They're playful, they're whimsical. I think we all need a lot more whimsy in our lives. And they have super cute parent and child matching design, actually whole family
Ah.
matching designs. So I think it's a great gift. To me, it's a gift to myself, but I can't think of the founder's name off the top of my head, but Petite Plume is the name of the company.
Ooh.
And that's a
Well, I'll
brand
have to look them up.
I can't live without them.
And now, Melinda, if you were a type of car, what type of car would you be?
Ooh. I would be I would be an AMG. I think I would be an
Ooh.
AMG because
And
every
why?
engine is independently signed off by the person
Mm,
who created that engine, which I think is cool. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
And then finally, Melinda, what's the best career advice you'd like to pass on to our listeners?
Mm. Figure out the lifestyle you want to have and build your work around it.
Ooh.
I mean,
And
that's
say more
what I've
about
always
that.
done. Well, it's what I've always done. I
Yeah.
mean, not everybody is meant to be a corporate soldier. Some of us have to start our own companies, I think, because we're not good at working in corporations. Um, that was me in my 20s. And then when I started having children, I didn't want to travel as much. And so that's why
Mm.
I was like, that's really what fed my idea of developing a mobile app because I was traveling globally and it was really hard to do that as a mother of young boys. And so I think at every step of my career, I've sort of thought about what adjustments I need to make at different parts of my life stage. And I've kind of rearranged, things around those desires.
That is awesome. I love think about the lifestyle you want and then build a career and life around that. Malinda Sanna, CEO and founder of LookLook, thank you so much for being on the show.
I enjoyed it. Your questions were so fun to answer. Really a pleasure.
My pleasure too. And we'll be back in just a few moments with my final thoughts.
For over 25 years, Jayzen has coached, trained, and developed thousands of leaders and executives, helping them achieve their next career breakthrough. He's a featured speaker at global conferences and companies to help everyone bring their best authentic self to work, show their value, and lead with their brand every day.
Wow, what an amazing conversation with Malinda Sanna, the CEO and founder of LookLook. Malinda had so many great insights here, but what really stood out to me was this whole notion that she was inspired to found her successful business by solving problems that she felt no one else was solving for. Now, my best career advice is you've got to find a hole and fill it. And that's exactly what Malinda did. In fact, she looked out throughout her career, whether she was working within a brand or she was working on the agency side or even freelancing and helping, that people just didn't like going to focus groups. And so many times the focus groups just came out with a report that wasn't actionable. Malinda saw that there was a hole that could be filled. What was that white glove experience that not only super served the needs of participants, but brought back amazing insights and actions that could super serve her luxury clients? So I want you to think about, in your world right now, what hole needs to be filled? What problem is it that you can solve? And how can you go ahead and fix it? Well, that's our show for you today. If you loved what you heard, make sure that you are following us on Apple Podcasts or subscribing to us right here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll bring you brand new shows every couple of weeks. Now, of course, I'd love for you to follow me on social media. I am at Jayzen Patria on all platforms. And check me out on LinkedIn because I share tons of tips and tricks on how you can lead with your brand to your next career breakthrough. Most of all, and most importantly of all, in your career, promise me you will not be a boring old commodity like coffee. Make sure you are a super premium brand like Starbucks.
You've been listening to Lead with Your Brand, the podcast that explores and uncovers exceptional career success stories and inspiring personal brand journeys. With your host, personal branding expert, inclusion advocate, keynote speaker, and author, Jayzen Patria. Thanks for listening, and we invite you to subscribe, follow, and share the podcast with your colleagues and employees. Learn more about Jayzen's book, Lead with Your Brand, Build Your Super Premium Personal Brand to Achieve Your Next Career Breakthrough, at leadwithyourbrand.com.